even after.
So now we want to import a new table. We've already appended a table. Now we want to import a new table. This requires something different. The procedure is a little confusing, but with a new table, we have a spreadsheet which has all the relevant information for organizing the table already prepared. That includes the column headings, the data types, and the data if we want to. And so we don't have to design a table in Access to have a table imported. We can do that if we have a table designed in Access already, even if it has no values, we just append to that. But in this instance, we're going to add a new table. So you go in, you can use any spreadsheet that you already have. This is the advantage of OpenOffice Base and all relational databases. You can import data that you've already created or that you find on the web. And this is how big data is made, because all you do is harvest flat files that have already been created. And the spreadsheets will already have data types already attached to them, and the data will already be included. Provided their data types in the data types in the relational database are the same or exist, and they always will. You have most data is basically one of several different data types: integer, Boolean, text, and so that's not going to be a big problem. What you need to understand, however, is the concept of the primary key whenever you are creating a table or importing information. We haven't dealt with a primary key yet because we've dealt with extremely tiny tables that don't necessarily have a need for them because they're just learning tables. What is a primary key? Primary key is basically the row number of the table, but it's more than that. Primary key is a unique identifier for every row, which distinguishes it from every other row. Primary key is usually all the way over to the left, functions as a row number, but it doesn't have to be a row number. The only thing it must be is unique from all other rows. So Base usually will just create a primary key from a succession of integers, one after another, starting non-repeating from 0. So what we're going to do is we have a table, we have a spreadsheet flat file already prepared, and we'll paste it in, and you will see how Base will create a primary key so the table will be organized. There's no way to get around it. You'll see how it's menu driven and very simple to do once you see it in operation. So over to the left here, we have the origin table created in the spreadsheet. Now, it may already have a row numbering system in the spreadsheet. However, Base is going to create its own. Of course, you have the row numbers in the spreadsheet structure. In this instance, you see all the way over to the left, rows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. Those don't change. And then the spreadsheet creator has added ID number as column 1, and those index from 0 up to by integers. In this case, they're 7, 8, and 9 because this was the append table of the previous iteration. But these were created by the user. And of course, they could be anything. They could be numbers, they could be letters. And spreadsheet flat files do not have a requirement that they be non-repeating. Relational databases do have a requirement that they be non-repeating because Otherwise, you're in danger of getting duplicate tables. If you have the requirement, there's a non-repeating primary key in a table in a relational database. It assures you do not have duplicate tables, duplicate rows. Duplicate rows could cause all kinds of problems because there's no way to delete. It's very difficult to delete duplicate rows which are identical once they're put into the machine. So Base and all relational database systems enforce a uniqueness requirement when they create the table. So what we're going to do is just cut and paste, like we did with the append. We're going to cut and paste this table, including column headings, into Base, and we're going to create a new table. We're not appending to another one. We use the same paste function we did with appending. We highlight and cut, we highlight and copy the spreadsheet, and then we go over and we select any table in the relational database and hit select paste. And then the next step will allow us to create a new table. We're not really pasting, but we're using the paste function. Okay, so here's a couple of descriptions of what a primary primary key is. Another thing about primary keys is in relational databases, rows are often reshuffled because you rarely actually go to the table to consult data. You'd run a query. So it does not matter in which order data lives in the rows, because the primary key is a random number, hopefully doesn't have any semantic information relevant to the data. It's just a number which exists to assure no two rows are duplicates. So basically, the primary key exists to distinguish rows from each other, but not necessarily to enforce row order, because relational databases get very large, and how they handle data in bulk, it doesn't require tables to be in any order, table rows to be in any order, because everything will be done through queries, and that's the only way you really see the information. Queries will return in a order that you specify, but tables don't have to be. It's kind of like Amazon warehouses, where all the products are assigned shelf space based on how common they are demanded and how difficult they are to move. So you'll have, in Amazon warehouses, you'll have toothpaste next to motor oil, next to sweaters, and the entire criterion is how is it easiest to get the most high demand stuff to the box, and the most low demand stuff is the furthest away regardless of what it is. So it's not like a store where everything of a like kind is stored together. That's a little tangent, but what we will do is, once we have selected the data in the spreadsheet that we want to append as a new table, we hit paste. We select a table in the database. We hit paste, and it brings up this dialog box, which is familiar to you already. And what you do is you just type in a new table name in the top box under step number 1. And then you will select the definition and data option instead of the append data option, which was the default. Definition and data tells the machine that we are importing a new schema, a new table type. And then we can either specify which columns we're importing or go directly to creating. So you will see the options in the copy table dialog box require you to change what you would when you are doing a create table. So let's do this now. We have the origin spreadsheet. In this instance, it's vendors. We have vendor name, vendor city, contact, and phone number. It's very simple. Phone number is going to be a number. We create it as a number data type. The others are text. And we're going to select not only the data, we're going to select the column headings. Make certain we do that, because the column headings and the data types will be essential to define the table. We hit copy. Then we go to the landing page for the relational database. Select any table and hit paste. And once we're in that dialog box, we change our mode into adding a new table, brand new table, by creating a new table name. In this case, we'll call it vendors. And the append defaults, append data, and use first line as column names. Append data will disappear once we select definition and data, because we're importing a definition for the table and data. If you were only importing the column headings and the data types, you might select definition. But we have actual data as well we want to import. Appended data is automatically deselected because it is inconsistent with the first option. Use the first line as column names. That's kind of necessary because you have to import column names. Because we're not creating a table, we're importing a pre-created table as a new table. And we want to, it's not default selected, but we want to create primary key. And the machine will stop us if we do not select primary key. Of course, primary key is, as I said, a number which makes certain, a number which assures that each row will be unique from every other row in the table. It'll be all the way over to the left, and it'll be in this instance, it'll be an integer in the column name ID, and that will be it. It functions as a row number only when you first establish it, because rows will move around in the relational database. So the next option, you select which columns from the origin table you want imported into the database. So you don't have to import everything. In this instance, we are. And of course, you can decide, you can elect to remove one before you import it if you change your mind. Okay, so these are the table headings from the spreadsheet, and they're going to be the table headings for the relational database. Then we go next. Now this is an optional screen. This shows you the data types in the original spreadsheet, which are carrying over to the destination table. See vendor phone, actually vendor phone is not changed to number, but you see each of the, in this instance, each of the columns has the data type text. And the only new one is the ID, the primary key. You see that little gold thing? That's the primary key designator. It's a little picture of a key. And again, Base automatically adds that. In this instance, we could go in and move around. We could, for example, we could make entry required as an option, say, for the vendor. So we don't enter anything unless we have the name of the vendor, which probably makes sense. But the default is no. Sometimes we may know what a vendor's address is, but we don't know the name, so it wouldn't make sense for entry required to be a structural attribute of that line. But ID, there is entry is required by default, by design. You don't have an option with a primary key to select entry not required. In SQL, that's called not null. And let's make certain vendor entry name vendor entry is required. And then we hit create, and we see nothing. But the table has been imported. We can tell that because here's a new table, vendors. That was the table we imported. Didn't exist a minute ago. And let's open it up. And there is our vendors. Name, city, vendor contact, phone number, and also the primary key, the ID field here, which will designate the individual. I'm going to pause here. Another waste of 15 minutes. And so we've added the three tables here. This is going to require a little more measuring. Since we imported the table already, created a new primary key, but it did not create an auto increment for it. So if we were to add a new vendor, right here, with other relational databases, we have over in the ID field, you'll see a little angle bracket tag, which will designate that it's going to auto increment. If I hit enter here to enter this row, it's going to give us an error message because there was no primary key. Primary key did not auto increment. We have to enter it. And we have to go in and fix that. So now we have entered this table, added a new table. We do need to go into table design mode. Edit, and select auto value yes for the primary key for the ID field. So here we are up here. Auto value yes. Now we exit design mode, enter update mode again, and we do have here the auto field, the auto increment. We can add new fields. Press enter, auto increments. Very nice. And we'll do another, make certain it's working again. And it auto increments again. So that has been solved. So now we have a added table, which is auto incremented, and primary key that auto increments, So what was a plain, unintelligible, unlinkable database, unlinkable spreadsheet table is now part of a living database system. Of course, the only problem with this particular table here is it doesn't yet have a shared column with any other tables in the database. But a table may arise which will link vendor, perhaps through farm equipment, um, to or you know seed stock tables to the rest of the tables. So that's how you create a new table. And again, going back, this is the copy table, which we turn into a new table. Select columns going to be in. Create the primary key logic in the alert box where you select data types for the new table before hitting the create button. And there's our new table. So thank you for watching. So far, we have learned so thank you for watching. Today we dealt with a little sidetrack into what happens when two columns have a shared attribute between two tables, but the two columns actually have values in them that are different from what are in the other columns. Basically saying the shared column exists in two tables and can have different values in that table, in each table. Doesn't matter once the column is merged, the excess values will show up if you choose them to, or not, because if they're not shared values between the two tables, you have an option to not include them in the shared table, the joined column, the joined table. And we did appending tables from a spreadsheet into the database, how to add data to the end of an existing table in the database from a spreadsheet. And then we had a quick discussion of what the primary key is. Primary key is a unique value in a column which makes certain that no two rows in a database table are identical. And we went from that into the idea of adding new tables directly from a spreadsheet into the relational database without table design, which is very convenient because data exists in flat files, in spreadsheets all over the place, and you want to import them into a database with minimal effort, provided you understand the concept of primary key and understand that the relational database system will add a primary key. It's very simple to do this. So thank you. And we will go into further discussions of table design and database design and joins in our next lesson. But right now you already have a pretty basic knowledge of how a database works. And you can start not only creating your own tables, but importing tables and running queries on the data. And I look forward to your enjoying and